In this video, I'm going to talk about registration under the CGST Act, chapter number 6, and specifically the amendment which is going to be effective from 1st October. So focus is on amendments, but for understanding the amendments, we have to understand some more provisions related to the amendment. So chapter number 6 of the CGST Act dealing with the registration, this is actually from section 22 to section 30. Right? Now, in this video, I'm not covering all the sections. In this, I'm covering 3 sections. Section number 22, 23, and 24. 3 sections we have to understand. Actually, amendment is in section number 23. New subsection has been brought in, that subsection 2 that has been substituted. So for understanding that amendment, we have to understand what is in 22, what is in 24, then we will come to 23, because the amendment in 23 is having overriding effect over section 22 as well as 24. So unless we really understand what is 22, what is 24, understanding 23 will be a little difficult. So giving you background, what is 22, what is 24, what is in the 23 new, and where is the amendment. Okay. And in relation to that amendment, a notification has also been issued. Right. So everything I'm going to cover in this video. So please stay with me till the end of this video. And if you think that this video is going to help somebody, please do share. So I'm taking you to the document which I have prepared, and you can always request me on this number for the copy of the document. Okay, so here it is. So this is the registration under the CGST Act and exemption effective from 1st October. This is the title. Section 22 says persons liable for registration who must obtain registration. Liable. This is the word liable, right? So this word is important. So indirectly, this is saying that for whom registration is necessary, when the registration becomes necessary. Okay. So subsection 1 says, so actually everything is related to subsection 1 only. So subsection 1 says every supplier, the supplier of goods or services or both, shall be liable to be registered under this act in the state or union territory other than special category states, from where he makes a taxable supply. Now, this is very important. From where he makes a taxable supply of the goods or services or both. So if he is making supplies with the non-taxable things or non-taxable supplies he is making, registration is not required. So where he is making taxable supply, if his aggregate turnover, now this term aggregate turnover, it is already defined under section 2, subsection 6 of the CGST Act. So this you can refer there. So in nutshells, the aggregate turnover is the total of the value of taxable supplies, only value, not taxes. Because when we make a supply, taxes are also there in the invoice, but the amount of taxes is not to be included in the turnover for the purpose of this. Okay, so what we're talking about is aggregate turnover is aggregate of value of taxable supplies, value of exempt supplies, including exports, all those things taken together. That is called aggregate. And that is taken on pan-India basis, not in one particular state. So one person is having business operations in Maharashtra and they're also in Gujarat, then also in Rajasthan, then the turnover is to be taken from on pan-India basis, not in one particular state. So this is aggregate in a financial year exceeds rupees 20 lakhs. So when the registration becomes compulsory. So before I take it, now provided that where such person makes a taxable supply of goods or services or both from any of the special category states. What is special category states? I'll explain. Okay. He shall be liable to be registered if his aggregate turnover in the financial year exceeds rupees 10 lakhs. So either we have 20 lakhs or we have 10 lakhs. Now 10 lakhs is meant only for special category states. Okay. So when the aggregate turnover exceeds this threshold limit, registration becomes necessary. Before the crossing of this limit, if somebody wants to opt for registration, it is not denied. He can certainly opt in registration. So before exceeding the threshold limit, registration is optional. But after exceeding the threshold limit of 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs, registration becomes compulsory. So because the word used is liable. So liable means if he does not opt for registration, or he does not go for registration, it will become an offense. So for special category states, that aggregate turnover is rupees 10 lakhs during the financial year, means from 1st April to 31st March. If the aggregate turnover exceeds rupees 10 lakhs, and aggregate turnover is aggregate of taxable supplies, exempt supplies, as well as exports, everything taken into account in one way. And it is on pan-India basis. So if it is exceeding 10 lakhs, registration becomes necessary. For other than special category states, aggregate turnover is rupees, if it is exceeds rupees 20 lakhs, registration becomes compulsory. Okay, now what is meant by special category states? This is defined in the end. The expression, now see this. A special category states shall mean the states as specified in subclause G of clause 4 of article 279A of the Constitution. That's it, except the state of Jammu Kashmir. So that is having a list of the states, which includes Jammu Kashmir, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Himachal, Meghalaya, etc. But what is said in except? It means these states means the Jammu Kashmir, Arunachal, Assam, Himachal, Meghalaya, Sikkim, and Uttarakhand, these are not considered as a special category of states. So what is remaining is only these 4 states. These are considered as a special category states of Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. Only 4. Okay, so many places you may find a wrong reference. So be careful about that. What is the meaning of special states? So special states are Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura, nothing else. So in these states, so if the person is having the place of business in any of these states, then aggregate turnover throughout India, if it is exceeding 10 lakhs, registration becomes necessary. And other than these states, then the registration becomes necessary when the aggregate turnover exceeds rupees 20 lakhs on pan-India basis. So aggregate turnover, as I said, it is already defined under section 2, subsection 6. Now, this video is not for detailed description, right? This is sharing the information. So this is aggregate turnover is defined under section 2, subsection 6 of the CGST Act. You can refer there. And in a nutshell, this is aggregate of the value of taxable supplies, exempt supplies, as well as exports. That is called aggregate turnover. Okay, so this is relevant for our discussion under section 23 amendment. So when the registration becomes necessary, so as per section 22, registration, rather I'm using the word liability for registration. This liability is special states and other parts of the country. In special states, 10 lakhs. Other parts of the country, 20 lakhs. And this is aggregate turnover during the financial year. So when the aggregate turnover exceeds the limit, registration becomes necessary. Before that, registration is optional. Okay, now here from, I'll take you to section 24. We'll come to 23 later. Okay, so from 22, I'm taking you to 24. This is compulsory registration in certain cases. This is compulsory. So I'm writing here, this is compulsory registration, right? I'll show you the board in little later. So this says, notwithstanding anything in subsection 1 of section 22. What is the meaning of this? This says irrespective of the aggregate turnover of the supplier. Because section 22, we did it just now, and this is already here. So when the turnover exceeds 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs here, then only registration becomes necessary. And section 24 subsection beginning, it is saying notwithstanding anything, means it is having overriding effect over section 22. So they say notwithstanding anything in subsection 1 of section 22, it means it is saying irrespective of the aggregate turnover of the supplier, the following category the person shall be required to be registered under this act. Means whether turnover is within the limit of 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, or it is exceeding that. So if it is exceeding, in any case, registration is compulsory under section 22. But even when it is within the limit of 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs, registration is compulsory in certain cases. Now, out of the so many categories given, there are 12 categories are given where the registration is compulsory. Number 9 is relevant for us for this video. This is persons who supply goods or services or both, other than supplies specified under section 9.5. So I believe 9.5 is known to you. Through such electronic commerce operator who is required to collect tax at the source under section 52. So what it is saying? This is saying that any supplier who's making the supplies either of goods or services through the electronic commerce operator, except where the electronic commerce operator is required to pay tax by virtue of section 9 subsection 5 of the CGST Act, then that supplier who's making supply through the e-commerce operator should be registered irrespective of aggregate turnover. Okay, so what is said is compulsory registration. Okay, so in this section 24, clause number 6, I think clause number 9 was, right? I'm sorry. This is clause number 9, yes. So clause number 9. Who requires registration? Suppliers of goods or services making supplies through e-commerce operator who is required under section 52 to do TCS, tax collection at source, right? Excluding e-commerce operator who is required to pay tax under section 9 subsection 5. So friends, I write everything on the board so just to facilitate you to take the notes, and it is my always an expectation that you are taking the notes also for your reference later on. Okay, so registration under section 22 to 30, that is chapter number 6. In that we are referring section 22, 23, 24. Section 22 says that the suppliers are liable for registration when their aggregate turnover in the space having a place of business in the specialist category of states is exceeding 10 lakhs. In other parts, if it is exceeding 20 lakhs. And section 24, this is an exception to section 22. This is irrespective of what they say, notwithstanding anything, these figures. Right? In other words, it is saying forget section 22. If you are doing this, you have to have the registration under the CGST. So this is exemption or other exception to section 22 subsection 1. Registration is compulsory irrespective of turnover. Now, when you know both of the sections, now only you will understand what is given under section 23. Now, I'm taking you to section 23. Okay, for this I am clearing. Now, in section 23, there are two subsections. There are two subsections. You can make a separate chart for section 23. Subsection 1 and subsection 2. Okay. Now, what is given in section 23? Now, this is section 23. Persons not liable for registration. Right. So, when the liability begins, this is the continuation of section 22. 22 says if the aggregate turnover is exceeding the specified limit, then the registration is compulsory or the person is liable. And this section is saying person not liable, means again, irrespective of the turnover. So subsection 1 says the following persons shall not be liable for registration, namely, so very specific, who does not require registration. They say any person exclusively in the business of supplying goods or services, or both that are not liable to tax or wholly exempt from tax under this act or under the IGST. So either their goods are not taxable at all or not subject to GST, that is exempt. Number 2, an agriculturist. Agriculturist is exempt but provided to the extent of supply of produce out of cultivation of land. So agriculturist may be engaged in multiple business activities, including cultivation from the land. So if he is engaged in cultivation from the land and his turnover exceeds 10 specified limits of 10 or 20 lakhs, he does not require registration. But if he is engaged into other activities, then this will not be applicable. Okay, so it is not the exemption given to the agriculturist. The exemption is given to the agriculturist only in relation to this. Okay, now this is one part. So who is exempt under subsection 1? Number 1, non-taxable supplies as well as wholly exempted supplies. And in clause B, agriculturist, but only in relation to cultivation from the land. So here, in subsection 1, we have non-taxable supplies, or wholly exempt supplies. Wholly exempt supplies only. I'm adding this word in capitals. So somebody who's exclusively engaged in the business in relation to the activities which are either exempt or which are not taxable, then he does not require registration. Number 2 is agriculturist. But exemption for agriculturist is only in relation to cultivation from the land. Okay, so this is exempt category irrespective of the turnover. Okay, so either wholly or rather exclusively engaged in non-taxable supplies. What are non-taxable supplies? As per section 9(2), petrochemicals, diesel, petrol, air turbine fuel, natural gas, and crude oil, non-taxable under GST as of today. And under subsection 1, alcohol for human consumption, that is a non-taxable for the purpose of GST. So, or wholly exempt supplies. Okay, so exclusively engaged in those supplies, then that person does not require registrations. And number 2, agriculturist. Agriculturist, but only for the cultivation from the land, that he also does not require registration. Okay, now taking into subsection 2, now this is something where I require your attention. Now this says, subsection 2, this says, notwithstanding anything to the contrary to subsection 1 and 24. 22 and 24. Now, this is a very important line, notwithstanding anything. So, we studied in 22 that when the turnover is exceeding 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs in the specific cases, then the registration becomes compulsory. Under section 24, we said in certain cases, the respective turnover registration is compulsory. But this is saying notwithstanding anything in section 22 or 24, means whatever is said, that is okay. But they say the government may, on recommendation of the council, by notification, so there can be notifications, and today I'm going to take a notification in relation to that, subject to such terms and conditions and restrictions as may be specified therein. So in notification, you will see the conditions also. Specify the category of persons who may be exempted from obtaining registration under this act. So this is saying that irrespective of what is said in section 22, irrespective of what is said in section 24, certain people do not require registration if exemption is granted by the central government by way of notification issued on the recommendation of the council, and the notification shall provide the terms and conditions in relation to that exemption. Okay, now what was earlier therein? This is also important to understand. Earlier also, the subsection 2 was there, but that says the government may on the recommendation of the council by notification specify the category of person who may be exempted from obtaining registration. So what has been added recently? Notwithstanding anything under section 22 and 24. That has been added, right? And terms and conditions, etc. That has been all, those wordings have also been added. So this is what is written in the footnote. This was old. And what is current? This is in the red here. So this is notwithstanding anything to the contrary to the content in subsection 1 of section 22 and section 24. The government may on the recommendation of the council by notification subject to the condition, etc. So in the notification which I'm going to refer now, exemption has been granted from section 24 clause number 9. That is not an exemption from section 22. That exemption is relates to section 24 clause number 9. So this is the notification. Friend, this is notification number 34 of 23, central text dated 31st July. Okay, so very recent notification. And this is in exercise of the powers conferred by subsection 2 of section 23. So that amendment has become effective. That amendment has become effective. But this will be effective from 1st October. Okay, so where it is mentioned that it will be effective from 1st October, this is here. This notification shall come into force with effect from 1st day of October 23. So issued on 31st July, but it is going to be effective from 1st October. Okay, so specific exemption from section 24 clause number 9. Right, now let us read this first. And all other things are conditions. This is in exercise of the powers conferred under subsection 2 of section 23 of the CGST Act 2017 and hereinafter referred to as the said Act. The central government, on the recommendation of the council, hereby specifies the persons making supplies of the goods. Now see, this is only goods. Under section 24 clause number 9 that talks about goods and services both, exemption is only in relation to goods. Okay. Through an electronic commerce operator who is required to collect the tax at source, that is TCS I mentioned under section 52 of the said Act, and having aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year and not exceeding the amount of the aggregate turnover ever which a supplier is liable to be registered in the state or union territory in accordance with the provisions of section 1 of section 22 of the said Act. So actually, as per section 24, irrespective of the turnover, registration is compulsory, but here it is said that registration will not be compulsory. As the category of person exempted from obtaining registration subject to following conditions. What are the conditions? Now read it very carefully. Such persons, maybe one, maybe more, shall not make any interstate supply of goods. No interstate supplies are allowed. Number 2, such persons shall not make supply of goods through the electronic commerce operator in more than one state or union territory. Business only in one state. Such persons shall be required to have a permanent account number. Actually, that should be requirement number 1. Rest will comes later. Okay, so he is having a permanent account number. He is not making interstate supplies and he is not having business operations in more than one state. Then, such a person shall, before making the supply of goods through the electronic commerce operator, declare on the common portal, that GST portal, their permanent account number issued under the Income Tax Act, address of the place of business and the state or union territory in which such person seeks to make the supply, which shall be subjected to validation on the common portal. So validation is very, very important. So all the declarations he is making, so declaration of the permanent account number, the place of supply, address, etc. are given on the common portal, and that is required to be validated. On validation, what happens? Such person have been granted an enrollment number. There is no GSTIN. He will be having an enrollment number on the common portal on successful validation of the permanent account number. So instead of GSTIN, what he will have? He will have an enrollment number. But after validation of the particulars furnished under clause number 4. then he will be allotted an enrollment number. And such person shall not be granted for more than one enrollment number in a state or union territory, only one place of business. Then, no supply of goods shall be made by such person through the electronic commerce operator unless such person has been granted enrollment number on the common portal. So if he doesn't have the enrollment number, then this exemption will not be valid for him. Then for him, registration will be compulsory. And if he is having enrollment number, then exemption is available. So this says no supply of goods shall be made. Okay. So after obtaining the enrollment number, if he makes a supply, he doesn't require registration. But registration will become compulsory as per section 22 when the turnover exceeds the specified limit. And where such persons are subsequently granted registration under section 25, enrollment number will cease to be effective. So when registration becomes valid later on, then or rather he is required to be registered, and that time this enrollment number will get nullified automatically. Okay, so what is said in the subsection 2? Subsection 2 is saying, notwithstanding anything in subsection 22 and 24, the central government may, by notification on recommendation of the council, allow exemption to specific category of persons from registration. And that exemption has been given by way of notification that says any supplier of the goods who is having the business operations in one state and he is not making any interstate supply, he makes and he goes on the common portal of GST, obtains enrollment number by furnishing permanent account number, place of business, state in which he wants to make a supply, and gets an enrollment number, then he doesn't require registration. But registration is not required as long as the turnover is within the limit specified under section 22. If the aggregate turnover exceeds, he will have to have the registration. Okay, so this exemption is primarily from section 24, clause number 9. But remember, in clause number 9, two things are there, goods as well as services. Exemption is only in relation to goods. Okay, so I hope the exemption has been understood, but this will be effective from 1st October 23. It is by virtue of notification, which is, once again I'll show you. This is notification number 34 of 23 and dated 31st July. So a small supplier of goods making or intending to supply through the e-commerce operator only within the state, they do not require registration irrespective of the fact that it is compulsory under section 24. But they will have to have the registration once the threshold limit specified in the section 22 is exceeded. Okay, so friends, if you have any queries regarding any course on GST or any course on customs, please contact on these numbers. And if you want to have the material which I was referring in this video, you can certainly speak to me on this number, and I will be happy to share the material with you. See you in the next video with the more updates. Thank you.
Thank you for watching video. Subscribe the channel for more such videos.